What's up, everybody? This is Ralph Amsden, co-host of the C-Town Rivals podcast. We're about to be joined by Brett Quintyne and Chili to talk about last week's action in Chandler area football. But before I do that, just a reminder that the C-Town Rivals podcast is brought to you by ArizonaVarsity.com, the Rivals affiliate site covering all Arizona high school football and basketball in the state of Arizona. You can support us by becoming a subscriber. Just jump onto ArizonaVarsity.com, and if you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. It costs about $8.33 a month to support all that we do. Subscribing to Arizona Varsity helps us bring you content just like what you're about to listen to. We are also part of the ArizonaSportsCast.com podcast network. ArizonaSportsCast.com hosts podcasts covering Chandler area football, like you're about to listen to with the C-Town Rivals podcast, as well as high school sports from around the state, the Arizona State Sun Devils, the Phoenix Suns, and Arizona Cardinals. So if you could go ahead and search for Arizona Sportscast on iTunes, become a subscriber, leave a review, that would be fantastic. Without further ado, let's get you to this week's episode of the C-Town Rivals podcast.
One more week left in the regular season, and wow, this year has flown by. Will everybody who we cover in the podcast make the playoffs? We hope so, but there's one team that's truly on the fence. 4 wins and 4 losses for the Chandler area teams. We saw a couple of donuts thrown, a positive one and a not-so-positive one. A streak broken, and we forecast who will have home games in the first round of the playoffs. Let's dive in. As always, I'm joined by my guys, Ralph Amsden and Chili, and we talk solid football across the board at the 3, 4, 5, and 6A levels. We're at the Chandler Hamilton Annual Luncheon today. First time the three of us have been here together. Chili, I think it is your first time here. Your thoughts on the initial setting?
Yeah, man, it was cool. I mean, I was never like popular enough or big enough in media standings to make it out here or be invited. But finally for the first time, Ralph had some pull and got me in. I didn't have to sneak in through the back door, and it was a cool vibe. It was very, very different than what I'm used to. A lot of suits out here, but other than that, like Brad Sussmat with his little roast and sitting next to Tresa with her big plate of food and. At the table with you and Zach Alvira and Ralph, like it was cool. I had a good time. It was nice seeing some of the kids too. Hamilton, they know they back and they're here to let Chandler know.
Indeed, we'll talk a lot more about the game later in the podcast, but let's start off with the Valley Christian Trojans. They come up with their 3rd straight win. This time it's a 28-6 victory over Bourgade Catholic. 14 fourth quarter points broke open a close game. Chili Kirk Sundberg's team is rolling now with a 7-2 record.
Yeah, man, and they got to be thrilled because Legata wasn't really a quarterback until this year, and I think last year he was a positional player. I think he played running back or something like that, and he's done a phenomenal job, and he doesn't give the ball up a lot, and I think that Valley Christian, they're primed to make their run in the playoffs, probably grab a victory or 2 at least.
I think they're in a position right now where they're battling to maybe have a home game.
Yes, they are ranked number 7 right now. Yes.
Yeah, and so I feel like 7 wins going into the season was something that we said should be the goal. Now it's about exceeding those goals, right? That's really, really important for them. One of their losses was to a Yuma Catholic team that they weren't really able to prepare for because they got a lot of players back. But that Yuma Catholic team has kind of fallen off too. So if you're, and they're battling for a playoff spot at all in the 3A. So it's very interesting right now for Valley Christian. Their identity offensively and defensively kind of changes from week to week. But I guess you want to be adaptable, right? That's the whole thing. They've rebounded from tough losses, and they're playing well. And I think, I can't say that they are a threat, to win it all in 3A. But if they end up in that 7 or 6 seed, they could cause a lot of problems from that. But they got to win on Friday. That'd be big to help their case to at least having a home game.
Absolutely. I do believe that 8 wins does get them a home game, and they will close out that regular season at the 4-5 Fountain Hills Falcons. The Arizona College Prep Knights, they take a loss, and they're now 7-2 on the season after falling to ALA Gilbert North 38-6. Very simply, Ralph, Chili, I think they were just flat out beaten. The Eagles team, they might have only been 4-4 on the year, but their schedule contains the Yuma Catholics and the Northwest Christians of the world. So this was not your typical 4-4 team.
ALA Gilbert North is actually really tough. I got a chance to go see them play earlier this year. Jack Rysdorf, I think, is a phenomenal quarterback. And, this is something that we said the last few weeks.
Coach's son?
Yes, Coach's son. This is the hardest part of ACP's schedule. I mean, there's good and bad to that. The bad is you may go into the playoffs with a losing streak. But the good is you'll be playoff ready because you'll be battle tested going into the playoffs, and you're not playing all these, Mother Teresa's All-Stars and Little Sisters of the Poor and stuff like that. So I think that Blues Crew, they're going to be all right. They're going to rebound from this, and they're going to figure things out. Sometimes you have to get punched in the mouth really, really hard to find out, like, hey, can I get back up and can I do this again?
Absolutely. And something I would like to see that I think Myron Bluford is going to really look into is toughening up that schedule. It'd be great to see an ACP Valley Christian regular season game. I think overall stuff like that, just playing some of the more prominent 3A teams, and I think this was a very good, promising loss indeed. And kind of like you said, they got knocked down and they will get back up.
That would be kind of dope, because then maybe after the Rotary thing here, we could have like a dessert thing for the ACP Chandler, the ACP Valley Christian rivalry thing.
Valley Christians always needed a natural rival, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've always sort of felt like there are some teams that they've had tough games against, but I don't think they've ever really had a true rival. Maybe ACP feels more that way about Chandler Prep because of proximity, but I think Valley would make a great sort of natural, they're both alternative schools. They're both very, community involved. They've got a lot of people involved in extracurriculars. They're both run very, very well. I think that could be a really cool thing. We can't force it, though.
Right.
But I'd love for that to happen.
Absolutely. And they close out their regular season against Gilbert Christian, and then it'll be on to the postseason. Right now, ACP is ranked 11th in 3A. The Seton Catholic Sentinels, they're now 5-4 after being blanked by the Saguaro Sabercats 66-0. Fellas, not a lot to say about this one, except they need a win over Post and Butte on Friday night to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Broncos are 4-5. The Castile Colts, they outscored the Maricopa Rams 41-27 to up their mark to 6-3. Quarterback Dane Christensen with 3 touchdown passes to lead the way. And Chili, I know you love those pick sixes. Senior John Vilhauer with a 44-yard return.
Man, I think Castile's defense has been slept on all year. I don't think that they've received the credit that they deserve. Sicarios and Carter up front, they handle their business. But on the flip side, that offense has been lights out all season long too. I think they played very, very well. I know last year, can't remember who it was, somebody asked me if they were closer to an 8-2 team or a 2-8 team, and I picked 8-2. This year, if you would have asked me that question, I might have picked 8-2, but I wouldn't have been as sure. And I think that, the job that Coach Newcomb does over there, absolutely phenomenal. It's very, very reflective of, who he is as a person. These kids have all bought in, even with some of the high-profile transfers out that they had. They still had players within the system that were able to just come in, step up, and make things happen. Blancas is easily one of the best running backs in the region. Mm-hmm. He's done an absolute job. And they got one of my favorite offensive linemen, Brock Duke. So, I'm excited for them. I think that this team is solid. I'm not sure if Colin Gapin's back yet. They need him back if they're going to make a run in this playoffs.
Because the 5A playoffs are going to be good.
Yes,
they're going to be really
he is
exciting.
A super special athlete. So, if he's back, put me down for 2 wins for Castile.
Here's my question. If at least one team from their region is probably going to make it. Higley has to beat Williamsfield,
yes,
which has never happened before.
Correct.
But Higley has to beat Williamsfield, and they're in to the Open Division playoffs.
Absolutely.
If that happens, and you also have Centennial removed by the process, and Horizon, and maybe even Notre Dame, you could have as many as 4 5A teams making the Open Division playoff, which would make Castile probably a top 3 team.
Yes.
Would you consider them a title contender?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was looking over at the rankings before we came out to the luncheon, and if things shake out well, they're a semifinalist. Which would be kind of top 3. So yeah, and then once you get into the semis, anything can happen. But definitely, the way things are breaking, I do think that Castile has an excellent shot at winning 2 playoff games. And they finish up their regular season. against a tough 7-2 Campo Verde team, so they will be tested going into the postseason. The Basha Bears, they fall victim to the Brophy Broncos, 21-6. Ralph, obviously a tough loss. The Bears scored early on a rushing touchdown by Caleb Jones, but they didn't score often.
Yeah, I think that this is a more respectable defensive performance for Basha, because the defense was really the unit that was going to have to hold it down. It's good that they scored. They're still in position to go to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. We had said it once they reach 4 wins,
they're in.
Knowing the way that the formula works, you get credit for playing tough teams. It doesn't matter how much they beat you by, you get credit for even showing up. Mm-hmm. And so while Basha's going to limp into these playoffs, at least they're going, but they get to face a wounded Perry Pumas team first, and it would put a real stamp on Basha's season to have a respectable performance in a rivalry game, because then once you reach the playoffs, then it could get real ugly real fast.
True.
Especially with what they're dealing with. But I think that this is essentially their Super Bowl that they're going into, and I think having played Brophy defensively fairly well, I think that maybe they have a little confidence going into a game in which Perry just got handled. And so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how that game shakes out.
Yes, hopefully the Bears do definitely show up, and they'll be taking on a team that is 5 wins and 4 losses. And the Perry Pumas, yes, the reason they're 5-4, they fall hard to the Hamilton Huskies. 49-17. First time Hamilton was on the winning side of that game since November 6, 2015. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid. They're back to a certain extent.
What?
Obviously, we were here at the Chandler Luncheon for a reason, and we'll dive deep into Chandler very shortly. But I can't tell you how excited and boisterous that the Hamilton sideline was. I mean, it was like royalty seeing Wren, Dupree, guys from the old guard. We say back, the old guard, standing next to Brett Palmer. Just seeing some of these guys have fun. I mean, I hadn't seen Brendan Rice really get loose in a while. I mean, stiff arming, pushing guys. I mean, they had a lot of fun. And granted, it was at Perry's expense, but it was good to see the Hamilton Huskies back in a certain extent.
Well, yeah, they're back. I mean, they're back. Whatever. You just made me say it out loud in front of Mike Zadebski. He was very gracious. But yeah.
He let you live, yes, he did let you live.
And seeing Dick Banashevsky as well, just out there the other night and even today, it was good stuff.
Cool. He's a good dude. And anywhere he goes, positive energy follows.
And I'll tell you then, just not to take a dig at anybody, but I hadn't seen him in 2 years. And when I saw him on the sidelines, hey, Brett, how you doing? I appreciate what you're doing. There's some other schools out there who sometimes kind of mix me up a little bit with people who I go to a little bit more than I had been Hamilton. So I was very happy to be called by name by someone I hadn't seen in 2 years. It was great.
It's good to hear that, Bruce. So what? So I mean, we're at this luncheon. It's crazy. The mayor's there. I went to Chandler High with the mayor's son. Both of us gave our oldest kids the same name, and so I always kind of go back and forth with Mayor Hartke about that. And it was cool to see, Camille Castile was here. You got sponsors. I remember this first luncheon because we sponsored it. It was Seatown Rivals, Battle for Arizona Avenue Chandler Rotary Luncheon. It's just grown every single year. It's really cool to be a part of it. And you talking to Mike Zadebski in there, and to hear him say, because I've said over and over and over again that Chubba Purdy's the most electric player in the state, and that he can get away with murder back there. He doesn't always have to have the best form. He doesn't always have to have his feet right. He doesn't always have to have his feet set or his arm right, or his blocking doesn't need to be there. They're going to score regardless. And to hear Mike Zadebski say today that, honestly, they shouldn't have scored at all. It was all mental errors on Hamilton's part that even gave Perry that opening. That just goes to show you that this is probably one of the biggest wins for Hamilton in the last 5 or 6 years.
Definitely.
Because they shut down, and I know I'm sometimes I'm out on an island with this, but I believe it to be true. They shut down the state's most electric football player in Chubba. The same kid that engineered a 50-point in a losing effort against Chandler. They shut him down, and he walked me through each of Perry's scores and how it was Hamilton's fault that they were even in that position in the first place. I got to say that is...
Because one of them was a toss, Jalen Young to Purdy. So, yeah, it was... No, you're right. They shut the defense down. I mean, I want to say the total... They shut the offense down. The total was 54 rushing yards for Perry. Chuba had 44.
Amazing.
3 guys combined for 10. And that's not a three-headed monster. It really is not. It was very impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, Perry continues to struggle defensively. Yeah. They continue to not really be able to run the ball with any consistency outside of their quarterback. I still think they're going to be a problem in the 6A playoffs. But at the same time, Hamilton has locked themselves into an open division spot. It doesn't matter what happens against Chandler, they're going. Because they're at the 5 spot right now, and we just watched Pinnacle drop from 3
to 6
to 6 after a loss to Chaparral, who wasn't even in the top 16.
Correct.
So I'm assuming that a loss to the number 1 team, if it happens, there's no way that Hamilton goes any further down than 8, and they're also not the only team playing that could also lose that's within that top 8. So we know Hamilton is destined for the open division. Both coaches said that that's where they want to be. My hope is just that they don't end up playing in back-to-back weeks, because I never really like to see that all that much.
Correct, yeah. I don't think they'll end up back-to-back weeks. Ideally, they would be on the opposite sides of the open bracket, so the city of Chandler could possibly have another celebration, but even if they wound up meeting in the semifinals, huge achievement for both teams, and I think the open division in that aspect would be a success, at least for these teams.
Do you guys think Perry's still a threat in the 6A conference playoffs?
Not to win it anymore. Semifinals, yeah, I think they'll win a couple of games, but with Highland kind of doing their thing, with Desert Ridge coming on, with Chaparral emerging as a strong team, and we know what Red Mountain can do, I don't think that Perry goes any further than the quote-unquote Final 4.
It's tough because, Chuba Purdy is so talented, but it's not about the one man. Like we said, that this team lost so much from last year. They don't have a 3-headed monster in the backfield. They don't have 2 good wide receivers out there. They have Young. I really like him.
Right, and that's it.
But don't have
there's no deep threat.
Who replaced Colby Dickey?
Nobody.
Right. And
then you even look at Peyton Hill, who would have been their feature back, but he transferred to Higley, and he's looking at being in the open division by leaving Perry. So it's just crazy how things work out.
Wild.
Man, and luckily, Hamilton has a 1 loss, which is starting to look more like a fluke, which is starting to look more like maybe like it was a trap game or something. Man, it is better that they lost to Brophy, though, than if they would have lost to Perry. Because if they would have lost to Perry, I think a lot of people wouldn't be saying, they would be saying, oh, this is what we expected.
Exactly.
This is
Hamilton. You're right.
But, they beat Perry. They got that game versus Basha back. They got that game versus Perry back. And now, they got to go get this game versus Chandler. So,
absolutely.
Hey, this team is so talented. I can't wait.
I don't think there's shame in losing to Brophy.
I don't think so either.
You saw Brophy get shut out and walked away impressed.
Yes.
And I know a lot of the people on that coaching staff. That is a serious staff.
No, they're good.
There are very few staffs in this state that are going to prepare you better and that have more collective experience than that staff out there. And that's a very disciplined team. And I think that there are a lot of schools out there that say sometimes a loss is what makes you realize the things that you need to work on.
Correct.
And it worked in Hamilton's favor to go back to the drawing board. Look what they did against Perry. I think I had marked Perry down as a 10-point favorite going into that game, and look what happened.
I didn't expect that. It's and what I also like about the gameplay, so just to kind of set it up for you guys, so Perry got the ball first, and 3 or 4 plays in, he was intercepted. Hamilton was in no rush to score. I mean, they were running the shot clock, the play clock down 20, 25 seconds. So the game obviously wound up being lopsided, but Hamilton came in with a game plan of, we're going to try to keep this game short. We're going to try to take as much time, because as we know, Perry could score very, very quickly, but Hamilton was very, very well prepared for this game, and it was good to see.
And they end up with a similar margin of victory as Chandler had.
Yes, they do. Perry. Yes. Absolutely.
Which
So
makes this game very interesting. The one
It's
coming up on Friday.
it's going to be good. We'll get to some interviews, but just briefly with the Chandler Wolves. Wow, a 3-game winning streak of donuts. 49-0 this time again over the Tucson Badgers on the road. 5th shutout of the year. Really balanced attack. Chili, let's just jump offensively. Your boy, Jaheim Brown-Taylor, 1 carry, 70 yards to the house.
I mean, the Jet, we know how he moves, very, very fast. So, like, I mean, imagine if he would have been getting carries. You know, I know he's been kind of healthy for a while now. I'm not sure what the situation over there is exactly because, you know, he had a ton of Division I offers coming into the season. He got injured. Day-Day Hunter emerges, and all of a sudden, like, Jaheim's not getting these carries. So I'd love to go over there and, you know, chop it up with Garrettson and Chick and all them and find out, like, what the real situation is because Jaheim is so talented, and we know that boy flies, hence the nickname, the Jet. So, you know, shoot. He's going to get some opportunities versus Hamilton. I would be stunned if he doesn't. You know, he's one of the many, many talented running backs that they have over there. You know, arguably my favorite, but like, you know, Day-Day's done his thing all season, so you can't take the ball out of his hands. Eli Sanders is extremely talented.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, they just punish you with like all these running backs that they have, and they're so loaded on this offensive side of the ball with Richmond and Graves,
receiver, yeah.
And you know, the tight end is nice. Like, I don't even know where to start, but I do gotta say, I know a lot of people are saying that this might be the best Chandler team of all time. I don't agree with that. This is definitely the best defense I've ever seen at Chandler.
Well, let's hear from somebody who does say that this is the best Chandler team of all time, and that is class of 2002 former New Mexico State quarterback, Hamilton quarterback, Joey Vincent. All right, I got one of the original superstars, C-Town superstars, Joey Vincent, out here at Soho 63. You're out here at the Battle for Arizona Avenue Luncheon. You never lost to Chandler.
Never.
And so you're here. Chandler's lost a few in a row, or Hamilton's lost a few in a row. It's 9-1. I mean, is Hamilton back? How do you feel about this?
Hamilton is back, but it's not this year.
You don't think so? Not this year?
No. Chandler's probably the best team I've ever seen. Next year, I think it'll be a better game. As much as I want it, and people are probably going to be mad I say this, it's going to be ugly.
You think so?
Yeah, Chandler's too good.
Talk to me about this quick rebuild, Coach Z, because I know you were on that hiring committee. This was somebody who you felt like would do exactly what he's done, which is modernize this offense, make it a school that people want to be a part of. And the culture seems, I mean, the rapidness of the culture shift is something that kind of blows me away. To make kids humble and hungry who come from neighborhoods around Hamilton High School is not an easy task, especially when you don't have that immediate success to feed into, that immediate culture to feed into. What's he doing right?
I think the assistant coaches should get a lot of credit for that as well. The biggest difference was it was somebody fresh. I feel like Hamilton got into a rhythm or a groove, and they did the same thing every year. I could stand on the sideline and call their plays back with the old staff.
Oh, for sure.
So any new coach was going to be that change. They were going to have that new freshness to it. But the way he came in the situation he came in, I think is the only thing that hurt him for last year. I really believe he's a great coach. I looked at his resume. I looked at what he did. He had a lot of the same kind of history that Coach Wren did. That's why I liked him. His actual playbook was a lot like Coach Wren's was, but they're running actually Coach Andy's plays now, which is a little bit different than Coach Z's playbook. But
and he ran some serious stuff at Marana.
Correct.
He tried to run over 100 plays a game out there. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. A lot of that is that RPO where one play is actually 3 or 4 plays.
Yeah.
So the playbook is not as intense as you think it is, but it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Choose your own adventure every snap.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So now I think Chandler, or this Chandler-Hamilton rivalry is a lot different than when we played it, right? Hamilton's a lot different school than we were there. I think that it went from the school of quote-unquote rejects, we were all the people that Chandler didn't want, to a school of prestige, and then it dropped fast. And I think the uprising of Perry and even Castile took a lot of the athletes away that would have gone to Hamilton. So I don't think they have the athletes that you think they do, like in the perspective of they're entitled anymore. I think that the lawsuit and all that stuff was the last bit of those kids. I think this new group is a totally different kid. I think the kids that are going to come up after, like the freshman class, they're totally different in their outlook than the classes, I would say, from 2008 to 2013, 15, 16.
Now, this freshman class,
It's ridiculous.
The things I've heard about them, that they are truly, truly special.
Correct.
And so it's just, I mean, for them to be able to have that continuity, to have people that are in their class who will have already been part of varsity, which never happened.
No.
I remember, Garrett Rand had maybe a couple of snaps, and then there was another freshman that year who had quit the team by maybe game 3. So I think he was elevated a little too early. But in the history of Hamilton, you don't have a lot of freshmen playing. And now the freshmen there are also good, and they've got a couple of people to look up to and have as peers at the same time.
Right.
How do you think that's going to affect the team?
It's going to give so like Coach was saying today, they don't have a very big senior class. There's not a lot of experience because people did leave. So it's going to give those kids that everybody's going to look up to them, like you were saying. They're going to have that experience that is needed. They're going to see what it's like to win at a young age, where nobody at Hamilton's ever beat Chandler now.
It's true, yeah.
We went a lot of years where nobody ever lost to Chandler.
Yeah.
So they don't even know how to win. So they had to change the culture back to a winning culture where we didn't really know how to lose.
So reestablishing dominance
Correct.
over Perry and Basha, that's
The small
step one.
schools, the small schools were giving us a run for our money for 2
Yeah.
years, which never happened before.
Yeah.
Not saying Perry and Basha, I'm talking about outside of this power region that
Oh,
we're in,
absolutely, yeah.
where we dominated these schools. In the history of Hamilton, the only schools that ever gave us fits were Gilbert schools and Brophy, until Chandler turned their program around. Now it's Chandler, but before that, you can go back and look at most of our losses are to Gilbert, Highland, and Brophy.
Yeah. So my last question for you is, you say that this Chandler team is the best, we say in high school period? High
Yes.
school period team you ever seen?
Best Arizona high school team I've seen, period.
What is it? I mean, I feel like it's this O-line. This O-line, I mean, I feel like this O-line could turn any starting running back in the state. Any starting running back in the state. Anyone, 2A all the way through to a 1,000-yard rusher. But also the running backs they have are special.
Well, that's where they like you said, they do have a special. To be a good running back, you have to have a good offense line. I don't care if you're a great running back and you don't have an offense line, you can't do anything. They have both. That's deadly. I don't think anybody can stop them.
Yeah. And you come from the school, even though you were a special quarterback, you come from the school of the quarterback is, in high school anyway, is not even the first or second most important position
Right.
on the offense
Right.
at the high school level. Like, you were very good at what you did, but even you know that.
Right. It takes.
You got to
I
block
had
and
to
run
have-
first.
I had to have the Adam Mannins, the Brett Olregis to catch it, because it doesn't matter how good you think you are, you think you can be. You can't do it all. They still have to catch it. The offense line still has to block, and your running back still have to give you a dimension to where they can't just tee off on the receivers.
Exactly.
So it's a full team deal, and Chandler has that right now.
I appreciate it, Joey.
Yep.
And that's just awesome, hearing from someone who has seen this rivalry, has seen things develop, and just kind of overall knows just the whole scheme. And again, this Chandler Luncheon has worked out very well. We're able to catch up with a lot of players. So a guy just kind of jumping back to the future a little bit, Malik Reed, who is on that current Chandler defense. Malik Reed, we're here at the Battle for Arizona. Obviously, Chandler, Hamilton, always a big thing. Just tell us about being a part of this good luncheon.
Oh yeah, it was a great event. It's been going on for a while, and I think this is the best one. This is my first time coming. It was a great event, so yeah.
University of Wisconsin is next for you. What went into that decision, and just talk about your future? I know you're excited.
I thought that they gave me the best chance to have a great future and have a great football career, and I weighed all my options. I had a great. I blended with the coaches very well on the team, and I'm really excited to get there and go to work.
This defense that you guys have is nothing short of phenomenal. 3 straight shutouts. Just talk about your camaraderie with your fellow defensive mate.
Yeah, we're like a family. We've been together for 4 years, and I definitely think this is the best defense to come through Chandler, but we'll see. And just me, Tate, and Gunner, our 3 best players are basically all on the defense, and we've all done a great job of just being leaders and make sure we have a great defense.
You guys indeed have done a great job. Let me ask you this. 3 quarters into a game, there's still a donut on the other side. Are you telling your backups, hey, you know what? You guys got to keep this shutout.
Yep, I'm definitely telling them that, and I like when that happens. I like when my brothers get to play for me, and I love it. I love the shutouts. Everyone gets to play. It's a good time.
Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ralph, what was cool, you were able to catch up with a couple of, and I'm going to call them esteemed media members.
Oh, yeah.
Tresa, Tudrick, and Zach Alvira, and they just bring a lot to the table.
Ralph Amsden, C-Town Rivals podcast. We are at the annual Chandler Rotary Battle for Arizona Avenue Luncheon. I've got a couple of newbies with me. I got the Tribune Zach Alvira and Channel 3/5 reporter Tresa Tudrick. I've been to every single one of these. I think we actually sponsored the very first one. But now, I mean, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's cool to see you guys here as well. How you doing today?
Doing great, Ralph. You know, anytime there's some free food and we're talking about high school football, you can call me in.
Hey, ditto on that. The free food was amazing, and then high school football is the best. So, you know.
So, I mean, Tresa, you've been here doing this a while. You are not new to this. Same with you, Zach, and you played at Highland, so you've been around. I just want to ask you, like, when you played versus now reporting on it, did you always was it obvious that Chandler Hamilton was maybe a little bit elevated, or did it take seeing it from a media perspective to say, like, oh, maybe this is bigger than some of the other rivalries out there?
I mean, we knew how big this game was. You know, we had our own fair share of big games. Like, you know, Highland-Gilbert was always a good rivalry back in the day when both teams were at this, you know, top level. I think it was like 1A or something at the time, or Division I, I should say. But, I mean, this game was we always knew about this game, and we always knew this was pretty much the rivalry, or at least one of them in the state. It's always been one of the bigger ones, though.
And Tresa, I've been at some of the other big, and I respect some of the other ones out there. I think you and I did a Cactus Peoria game together. Those are wild. This just feels like it's a little bit different. I'm not trying to put a bias on it. I've been really close to it for a long time. I even played in it. But just to have this luncheon and to have the mayor here and to have both coaches up on a dais, it just feels different.
No doubt about that, Ralph. And I'm a fan of everybody. I love all the teams. I always get to talk to the winners, so I'm just rooting for everybody. So I come from California, where I have no allegiance anywhere to any type of Arizona school. So when I started learning about the high school culture here in the Valley, Chandler Hamilton was one of those that stuck out to me, just based on the level of talent that both schools have been able to put out. Some players still in the league right now, Brett Hundley, like you mentioned, Terrell Suggs, other players that have just taken it to the next level. And you see it with all the bells and the whistles and all the pomp and circumstance almost that you see at this luncheon, shows how big of a deal this game is in the high school football realm.
And a lot of those guys that you talk about, you know, there's Cameron Jordan, there's Brett Hundley, there's Dion Jordan. They never beat Hamilton. Never. For as talented as they became, they never got that win. It seems to have shifted, obviously, toward favoring Chandler, but Hamilton's 9-1 this year. What do you expect from this year's game, Zach?
I expect it to be extremely competitive. I don't think Chandler's going to just blow them out like everyone thinks, or everyone thinks that Chandler will do with every single team. I really think Hamilton's going to keep this game close. I mean, it's a rivalry game. People always get up for rivalry games. We've seen that multiple times throughout the year in other games as well. Records don't matter. It doesn't matter what happened the previous, 9 weeks of the season. It's all about right now, and I think this is going to be a really good game.
This might, just as far as individual talent goes, this might be the most talented both teams have ever been, and they're on a collision course. They might end up playing twice in the next 2 weeks, or the next 3 weeks, I guess. What do you see here that's unique to you, Tresa?
I think it's that both teams are so hot, and just in the last few years that I've been here, it's been Chandler, Chandler, Chandler. That's all I've heard about. But to see Hamilton on the rise. I was at their game when they beat Highland early in the season, and just to see that, is Hamilton back? And everyone on that side of the field is like, yes, we are. We're not the black sheep anymore. We're coming at this, and we want to play the big dogs. And I think that this game is going to be, like Zach said, you could throw the records away. You could just look at talent versus talent, man to man, mano y mano, and just go at it.
All right, awesome. I appreciate both of you guys. We'll see what happens Friday.
I think in general what we are going to see is we're going to see a lot of excitement. Coach Z asked if we thought that this would be a packed house. I think it will be. I think it will be one of the more heavily attended games in a long time between these two teams. I think the atmosphere will be electric. There is a lot of optimism and reason to be optimistic if you are a fan of the Hamilton Huskies. If you're a Chandler Wolf or a fan or alum, booster, etc., you realize this is a better than has been over the last handful of years Hamilton team. But you've also got a great team yourself. You're 3 times the state defending champions. It mixes and makes for a great game on Friday night.
Yeah, hopefully these kids don't fill up on that Halloween candy the day before, get a toothache or something. Make sure that you show up to this game. because it's going to be special. It doesn't matter. The score has never mattered in this game.
Correct.
Chandler lost 14 regular season games in a row, plus 2 playoff games in a row. They lost 16 times in a row.
17 was it? Might have.
I think it was no.
Yeah.
It was 16, and then they got their first one, and then they lost their 17th in the semifinals.
Okay, that year at Highland.
Same year. And so I will say, I went to a bunch of I played in one, and I went to 2 in between starting Seatown Rivals. 10 years after I graduated high school, I went to 2 of those in that 10-year span. Both times Chandler got blown out. Once was at Hamilton, once was at Chandler. Never regretted going. It is a good time, regardless of the score, just to be there and be in almost a semi-collegiate atmosphere with the amount of people that come out, the bands, the music playing from the stands, the sea of blue, the sea of black. I mean, it's something else.
Because I want to say that, I'm sorry, not to cut that 2015 game, they had some type of air raid, somebody like not a pilot, but a parachute guy landed to open up the game,
right?
And
they usually have to rent extra bleacher spaces.
Yes, absolutely.
If I was out there, if I was at Chandler High, I'd be selling driveway space on Oakland Street. $20 a pop, you can park in my driveway. So, I say go to the game regardless of the outcome. You're not going to regret being part of that environment. And my hope is that it's a situation where they at least get a little bit, because in the event that Chandler wins, there is a small chance that 2 weeks later you could have Chandler Hamilton again in the first round of the Open Division playoffs. I'd rather it take some effort or a win to get back to a rematch of some type.
Yes.
But just focusing on what's ahead of us is gonna be fun. Whether it's a good game or not, I don't know. We got to see how anybody shows up against Chandler. This is just a different type of squad that is very vicious in the way they run the ball. But it's going to be fun regardless.
Now, what are the chances that the Hamilton kids start bringing out brooms? Because they might pull out the 2-game sweep of freshman JV and be looking for that to finish it off on Friday night. Is there a chance that we will see some broomsticks? Keep in mind, Hamilton freshmen have only given up 7 points on the season. They are undefeated. And they want this game versus Chandler. I know that there's teams that want Hamilton, but Hamilton wants this game versus Chandler. They told me that they are going to win this game, and then the JV kids are 7-1, also super talented.
That's where it starts, right? Chandler had their success first
with
in
the freshman
lower
team,
levels, and you saw that play out over time. So there was a lot of stuff from the teams that couldn't beat Chandler over the last few years of restoring the order. This is about a new world order now, right? This isn't about setting things back the way they used to be. This is about starting something new, and Hamilton has an opportunity to do that on Friday.
I'm excited.
It is, I'm very excited. Just going back to this luncheon, great to see 2 solid coaches in the same room. Obviously, Coach Garrettson, we've had the relationship with for a long time. He was an assistant for numerous years, always very gracious to us and terrific. Coach Z, I had not met him until Friday night, and I had talked to him and interviewed him many times with various capacities, but to chat with him on Friday, to chat with Ben on Friday, both of those guys today, it's a good time. So regardless...
that Hamilton staff is one that I'd go check and see if I have any eligibility left just to be able to play for them. They get you fired up. Andy Litton's an incredible play caller. The Coach Bano just being around the program, all the energy he brings. I think these are 2 good staffs, 2 great group of kids, and I'm looking forward to a good game.
Absolutely. 2 schools that fully respect us and what we do. And with that, we got Chili, Ralph, and Brett. We're out.
Everyone not